What's good, everyone? Welcome back to Footage File, the PH version, the more diluted version, I would say. It's not.
Is there more water in this version?
There's more water in this version. That's why I'm drinking Diet Coke, the water of soda. So today we're going to be talking about a brand new movie called Nomadland, directed by Chloe Zhao.
You know, I just say Chloe Zhao because I'm not an insecure white person.
I see. I see how it is. Initially, I heard that it was going to be like the critical darling of this year, and it was going to be the big Oscar movie of 2020. Which honestly, I didn't really have high hopes for Nomadland.
Because it was made by a woman, Nick.
Especially because it was made by a woman. I feel like in a normal year, Nomadland would be like kind of swept under the rug. But turns out it's a good movie. It's actually a good movie, and I enjoyed it greatly. Actually, before I saw it, like a couple weeks before I saw it, I was...
Hold on, you just said it was a good movie, yet you enjoyed it greatly. So is it a good movie, or is it a great movie?
I thought it was a good movie.
So, are you willing to retract your statement?
Yes, I'm willing to. Excuse me. Yes,
greatly.
I didn't enjoy it greatly. This is an easy movie to like. You know, it's an easy movie to kind of just put in the background and let it wash over you. It's very inoffensive. It's a very passive watch. It's not really got you on the edge of your seat the whole time. But no, it's not incredible. It's not amazing. It's not the greatest movie ever.
This is interesting because I'm floating somewhere between your feelings on it and sort of the more critical consensus of it being kind of amazing. You know, there are moments in this movie where I was like, yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate this movie more abstractly than I do kind of concretely.
Yeah.
Like watching it. I appreciate, I think, what it's saying and what it's doing. I think that it is much greater than the sum of its parts. Sort of the whole picture, the whole kind of experience, I think, is much stronger than a lot of the individual aspects of the movie.
Going into this movie, I was not expecting it to be good at all.
Why not? Like,
well,
what was your apprehension?
I was at, and I'm gonna bleep this name out, but I'm gonna say the name. I'm sitting house. She was like, "Have you seen Nomadland yet?" And I was like,
No, like it's not streaming.
It wasn't anywhere, and you can only get it through like the Academy screeners and crap like that. And she was like,
She did the laugh of people who have seen a movie before it's accessible to everyone else, and they act like it's like the greatest thing in the world, and then the second that it's actually accessible to people, they completely change their opinion. They're like, oh, well, it was fine. It's what I call film festival syndrome.
"Oh yeah,
And, yeah, I used to know someone who
way back in the day."
yeah, who they would go to film festivals a lot, and they would see movies, and
And this person's name was.
I feel like
Again, I'm gonna bleep it. So
well, no. We used to know somebody who they would really frequently go to film festivals, and they'd always come back.
Years ago.
Every single movie they saw, even if it was something like really kind of innocuous,
Yeah.
they would be like,
This movie is incredible.
And I got to see it.
They talk it up for hours, and then when it would come out on like Hulu or Netflix, I would bring it up again and be like, "Oh yeah, I saw that movie," and they were like,
Oh, it's on Netflix now? Like, oh, it's okay.
Oh, upon rewatch, it's like, it's whatever.
"Film Festival Syndrome, TM, trademark, it's a D tier."
I've been a victim to this syndrome. The first time I saw Whiplash, it was in a tiny little theater before it kind of blew up, long before the Oscars.
Then it turns out that it like sucks. It's terrible. It is funny because I have a Whiplash connection with Nomadland. So
Do you?
it
No, you
works.
don't.
I do, in that there is a scene in this movie, in Nomadland, that almost...
Oh, not
I don't want to say it ruined the movie, because I don't think that like a single scene can just like derail a movie so much that, it's
Right.
worthless. But
I don't have a problem with this scene. This is complete spoilers from here on out.
yeah, I had Whiplash.
You were worried about spoilers about Nomadland.
I had Whiplash deja vu while watching Nomadland. Because in the middle, Frances McDormand, she plays this kind of modern day nomadic figure, and she travels across the country working odd jobs and living in her van, etc., etc. I think this movie takes place like right after the recession. I'm pretty sure. I think it takes place in like 2011.
Oh, okay.
Like, there are little like news hints.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, it takes somewhere like right after the recession. She goes to visit who I think is like her sister.
Yes,
like
she goes to stay with her sister.
Who's like a rich lady. I think they live in like California. She's more well off.
Yeah, she's at the point where her van is like broken down.
Has to get repaired.
Yeah,
she needs to go to her sister for money.
Yes.
Yeah. That was already like kind of like a movie moment that I was like,
Yes.
oh no, she has to like go to her sister.
No, yeah, actually, and that's what I like about this movie. By and large, is that it avoids conventions, which was really fun.
It's mostly just kind of like a nice kind of like I don't know. It's a really experiential movie.
It's a journey. It's like I don't know, and we'll talk about the David Strathairn character, but he's great because you expect him to, like, screenplay, expect he's going to go one way, and he just doesn't. It's so uncomplicated.
You expect him
just...
to turn into like some sort of like creepy.
I know, it's great,
and he doesn't. It's great. He's just like an old guy. The scene that killed Whiplash for me, and Whiplash is a unique example of a movie where it was sort of like a sweatshirt, you know, like this wonderful Smashing Pumpkins trademark sweatshirt, where like if you pull a little string on it, you know, normally, you know, it's fine. But imagine if this sweatshirt, if I pulled out one string from it and the entire thing just fell off. And you saw my six pack.
And that was your
rock hard abs.
And this was your experience watching Whiplash?
This is my experience watching Whiplash, because there is a scene in the middle of Whiplash where Andrew Neiman goes to Alien's house.
Alien's house?
Yeah, Aliens. The guy in Alien. Whatever his fucking name is.
Andrew Nostromo goes to Alien's house.
He goes to the guy from Alien's house.
Oh, you mean his dad?
Yeah, his dad's house.
Ripley.
Can't remember.
Think of the dollar value amount to...
This installation has a substantial dollar value attached to it.
And he goes to his dad's house, and they have like a Thanksgiving dinner. And Andrew
John Reiser.
Paul Reiser. Everyone's there, and Andrew Neiman is like this, like, he's like, jazz. He loves jazz. And everything about it was like how intense my life as an artist is.
Yeah.
And I dip my hand into ice when my hand's bloody and the blood leaks to it's awful.
You just said that you don't think one scene can derail an entire
No,
movie.
but most times it can.
Okay.
But what this scene did was it made me approach the rest of the movie more critically. Like, it made me watch it in a whole different light. But there's the part where his, like, football player cousin, they're like, oh, so, Andrew, like, you know, what are you doing? You know, and he's like, oh, I go to the jazz school, you know, and they ask the cousin, oh, cousin, did you win that big football game? Yeah. And he's like this like piece of meat, and he was like, yeah, I won the football game. And everyone like claps, and they're like, yeah, like,
everyone loves him.
Football, we love football because we're dumb and idiots and we don't appreciate art and music. And then Andrew Neiman is like,
just so you know, I go to one of the best jazz schools in the country. It's just the worst.
Conservatory.
It's truly one of the worst, like, I don't use the word cringy a lot, but it's the cringiest fucking scene.
Well, I think he's like, it doesn't bother me. I think it works because he's like that the whole movie. He's just cringy and he's extremely pretentious.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that I think that for Damien Chazelle, and I think for most of the people who watch
I think
that's a sense of empowerment for people.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think that they're watching it that way. But anyway, the point is...
Oh, you think that, like, the character is a reflection of Damien Chazelle?
I don't want
filmmakers
to...
And...
Yeah, I don't want to play armchair psychologist to Damien Chazelle or anyone who watches the movie.
Okay.
All I'm saying is, I don't like Whiplash. I think it's a truly awful movie. That I love. I'm guilty of seeing numerous times. That's neither here nor there. And the reason why I went on that long...
is because in
because
Nomadland,
there is a scene.
There is a similar... It's
a very similar
not
scene.
Nearly as egregious.
It's not as, like, horrifically acted and, like, cliche. She goes to her sister's house to ask for money for to fix a van.
Right.
And she's there with all these, like, pretentious, like, California, like, socialite kind of people who sit in their backyard and, like, drink wine and eat off, like, cheese platters and stuff.
The only scene that feels specifically like it's that
screenplay,
Dark Night of the Soul moment, that's the only... part of this movie that feels like that.
And people watching can be like, well, it's based on a real book. You know, it's based on real life. And it's like, well, this person's real life got pretty cliche. I hate to say it. And not only do people at the party treat her kind of like a PC Barnum exhibition, you know, where they're like, oh, you live in like a van. Like, oh my. Like, we're California socialites and we like eating cheese off platters. And what an interesting life. Good for you. Good for you. It's really bad.
What this scene was achieved way better in that scene when she's in the supermarket and she runs into those people she used to know.
Yes, you're homeless. Yeah.
And they're like, you homeless? And she's like, no, I just don't have a home.
I just don't have a house,
Yeah, and she used to teach one of the girls, like she was her old teacher
message
or something.
Received. And even that scene's like a little on the nose, but you're like, all right, it's in the beginning, I can excuse it. And then the movie is thankfully going to write itself, because that, I don't know, that was the only scene it really felt like they kind of like set up cameras and had like actors delivering lines.
Good point.
Where it's like
because a lot of the movie is real.
Yeah.
A lot of the movie is real people.
They sit down. There was just the whole movie feels very naturalistic. It has a great kind of the term
neo-realist. For you real cinephiles out there, for people who really love movies,
Like, it has that whole feeling, it's very natural, it's very
I agree.
real, as real as a movie can be, I guess. That scene in particular feels like, oh, they sat down, like, we get coverage, and it's
Yeah.
like, there's people sitting here.
Yeah, it's almost too easy that we would have this perfect scene for the character to justify her lifestyle to other people.
It's dumb.
to like an antagonist. It's bizarre.
It's stupid.
And it doesn't ruin the movie. Because her sister isn't a bitch. Her sister's still nice. She takes her in.
And he gives her the money.
Yeah, it's not like she like leaves her out on her own.
Yeah.
Like totally destitute. So yeah, I went into this movie thinking it was gonna be bad because she like did that evil witch cackle thing she does when she laughs, because she thought it was horrendous. She and thought it was the worst movie of the year.
Which is, by the way, how you know it's going to be a good movie. If this person doesn't like a movie, it's great. You can really easily surmise that it's going to be very interesting and emotional and well made. So.
The most bizarre taste I've ever encountered in a human being. And so I went into it thinking it was just going to be like this pretentious piece of shit. And maybe the fact that I was like wildly depressed contributed to the fact that I felt so much. But this movie is touching. I think it's very poignant. At the end, there's a great scene. There's that Santa Claus guy. He's kind of the spear. Bob. He's kind of the spearhead of all the nomad, the people who follow this way of life. And he has a very personal story about the loss of his son. And he gets choked up talking about it. And I'm pretty sure he's a real guy.
Yes. No, he is.
It's a little bit too real, and I really, it's just easy
or maybe
to
he's
connect
just a
to.
fraud and a great actor.
Or maybe he's just really good.
Well, this is the thing that I wanted to talk about briefly. I was watching a movie a few months ago. It's from the filmmaker, her name's Tamara Jenkins, and it's a film called Savages. It stars Phyllis Seymour Hoffman and Laura Linney. It came out in 2007, I think.
Mhm.
If you guys haven't seen it, anyone who's watching, you should check it out. It's a great movie.
Go watch
And
Savages.
not a lot of people have watched Tamara Jenkins, and she really deserves the attention. She's a great filmmaker. But this movie is about this woman and her brother who have to put their father into like a assisted living facility. The title Savages, that's their last name, the Savages. But it ultimately becomes sort of a double entendre because...
Do they eat her?
No, it becomes a double entendre because you realize that the Savages are like us. The Savages are how we treat elderly Americans as a culture.
Interesting.
We're a country that
It's a retirement community.
Japan and China and a lot of these countries, they have a real respect for elderly people, for elders, and for their knowledge. And the Western world, particularly in the United States, my brothers worked at a retirement facility for a long time. I've wised up to the fact that we really have very little empathy or sympathy for elderly Americans in any capacity. The fact that we basically just throw them into like death houses for the last 10 years of their life.
No, it's sad. No, I agree.
I think it's particularly poignant. That movie, the title and the whole movie is ultimately about how like the way that we treat old people is makes us can tell you a lot about our culture. Particularly, what I appreciated about this movie is I want you to take a second and think. Every single nomad in this movie is an elderly American. And what's great is the whole movie is showing these older people that have basically just been abandoned by the country.
Yeah.
They've been abandoned by the economy.
There's several characters who talk about they didn't get enough money from retirement.
In Social Security and retirement, exactly.
Right.
And ultimately, my favorite thing about this movie is how this movie looks at young people from the perspective of older people. The scene where Frances McDormand, who is not elderly by any stretch of the imagination.
Sure.
But she's an older woman. I think Frances McDormand is in her 60s now.
Probably.
And doing the best work of her life at this point.
She is so good.
Yeah,
she's like a Tom Hanks, I would say.
She's like a million times better than Tom Hanks.
I don't know.
Hanks is like a class act. He's like a great guy, but he's not like a great actor anymore.
No, that's what I'm saying. She's great in this movie. It's a great performance. I believe everything she says, but I'm always like, it's Frances McDormand.
Yeah.
And Tom Hanks is the same
that.
way.
I understand that.
Yeah. Like The only
Yeah.
other thing I've seen of her that I was like, oh, she's really a different character was probably Fargo. Maybe I just haven't seen a lot of Frances McDormand.
That's her like her best. That's hard to compare.
That's yes,
She's
and
so
it's
good
like
in that.
Tom Hanks with like Forrest Gump.
Did she win Best Actress for that?
She did.
She better. She's gonna have 3.
I think she'll win for this too.
That puts her in the top, doesn't it? With Kathy Hepburn. Katherine Hepburn has 4. Yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis has 3.
3. Frances McDormand only needs 1 more Oscar.
I know.
She's
I
gonna
know.
be tied for-
Which would be cool. She was good in 3 Billboards, but I didn't care for that movie at all. She's got the most infectious smile. I gotta say, like, I dare you not to smile when she smiles.
Her success as an actress comes entirely from her sincerity.
Oh God, it's just so easy to believe her. She just feels so genuine.
But in particular, the thing about her that works in this movie, there's a scene later on where Frances McDormand and David Strathairn are working at like this restaurant. You know,
David
it's like
Strathairn?
it's like a Fuddruckers type place.
Yeah,
you know, and
they're like cleaning the
they're
grills
cleaning. And one thing that I love about this film is that whenever younger people are in the movie, you know, there are babies in this movie, there are toddlers, there are teenagers, there are people in their 30s, 40s. When they're working at this Fuddruckers place, David Strathairn's son, who is probably in his early 40s, late 30s, comes to visit him. And there's such a distance. There's this sense of distance between them, even though they're related to one another. Like the way that it's shot and the way that his character, he's a musician and he's on tour.
Yeah.
You know, this idea that they're so far apart. And the same thing when this teenager talks to Frances McDormand in the store, and she's like, and she talks about like, oh, I heard you got into college or something like that. Like, they're showing the future of these young people when they go to live at that house at David Strathairn's family at the end. Yeah, they're seeing babies and toddlers, and they're living in a home. You know, they're talking about their future, and I think that there's such a great heart to this movie, and it's something I've been meaning to rewatch because I only became aware of it like right as I was finishing it the second time. I'd like to watch it a third time and see how else Chloe Zhao really excellently manages to capture this story that I didn't realize was kind of exclusively about older Americans. It's about how we treat old people as a country.
I think that's a really good point. I enjoy how there's so few younger people in the movie that when you do see them, it feels different.
Yeah.
And it's like
you feel like these people have their whole lives ahead of them.
Yeah,
in a way like, that these people, these nomads, they don't, by our own cultural standards, they don't have their whole lives ahead of them. Instead, they are making a life ahead of them.
Yeah,
you know?
no.
See you down the road.
Yeah,
that's the thing they always say to each other.
It's a conscious choice to focus on older Americans.
They're choosing to have a future by accepting this lifestyle.
There's that guy that she sits with by the fire.
Yeah.
And she kind of like gives him some wisdom. That's really nice. Overall, I think this movie's got something for everyone. There's a wonderful, like, golden years romance.
It's not an overbearing.
No, it's not. It's really subtle. It's really
no Viagra involved. It's it's beautiful. David Strathairn is. My mom has the, like, talk about like movie crushes. That's her biggest movie crush is David Strathairn, which is, I think is very bizarre. I mean, he's a good-looking dude. I mean, David Strathairn is just amazing.
Fans will know him obviously as Arthur Spiderwick from the Spiderwick Chronicles.
He's a friend of the show, David Strathairn. David, anytime you want to stop by, I'm an enormous fan. I love you.
No, he's great.
He's just one of the best actors. And every time I see him, and you know this, but every time David Strathairn shows up in a movie, I just light up. I'm just so excited to see him. I think he's one of the best.
You're like, oh, hey, there he is.
And I think it's unfortunate he's not in more stuff, and that he's not.
I agree.
He's not an A-lister, as it were.
Again, I appreciate how unconventional this movie is. It gave me a similar feeling watching it when I watched. This is gonna sound weird, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because when I saw that movie, it was after I'd watched like 3 Marvel movies come out that summer. And then I saw this, and I was like, oh, that's right, you can make movies a different way.
Yeah. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah. So this movie feels like that. I have no clue how Chloe Zhao fared with the Marvel's The Eternals, which comes out later this year. Which
just a disaster, probably.
I don't think so. I'm on the Marvel thing.
I'm excited to see the first neo-realist Marvel movie.
Yeah, what is it?
They found real superheroes.
The people who made Half Nelson directed Captain Marvel. I just loved watching that movie because it felt nothing like Half Nelson.
They have this really unique style where they managed to suck out any sort of unique traits or directorial decisions and just make it look like it's been through one of those machines that stamps out the McNugget shapes at the McDonald's plant. Don't get me wrong, there's 5 shapes. There's the bell shape, there's the like circle shape, there's the wing shape, there's the more triangular one, and there's like the club shape. You had 5 whole shapes to choose from. But it's gonna be one of those 5 shades.
You got your John Watts, your James Gunn, Taika Waititi. I don't know. The Russos. Oh my
They're
God.
just terrible. I mean, it's just amazing.
Thank you guys for watching our review of Nomadland. I would totally recommend it.
I would recommend
It's the
it.
best movie I've seen this year. I know there's a better movie.
It's not the best movie we've seen this year. Folks, go watch it. Never, rarely, sometimes, always. It's the best film of the year.
Apparently
we'll be
that's
talking about it on our next episode.
But thank you guys for checking back in with us, and we will see you next time. Yeah!